Hello, my name is Jacob Rhodes, and today I'm going to talk to you about capitalism. So, what is capitalism? Capitalism is a type of economic system that's based on like a free market with very little government intervention. It's the idea that people and companies own the rights and means of production. So, now that we have that defined, let's look at some alternatives. There are three main ones. The first is anarchism, which is the idea that there should be no government because they think government is evil, and that just leads to chaos because there's no law and order. So clearly that's undesirable. The next is communism, and communism is the belief that, or the idea that the government owns all the means of productions. There is no, corporations really don't own anything, it's really the government. And a country that is communist is one like North Korea, and North Korea is a very undesirable place to live because you cannot have a car unless you're a government official. All internet is censored basically by the government, and then additionally, all TV stations are censored by the government as well. So and North Korea is just a very isolated country. No one really works with them because they're communist and they just don't do much. The next is socialism, which is the belief that it's the government's job to redistribute wealth based on need. And although on paper this may sound great, it really does not turn out well. For instance, Venezuela used to be a democracy back in 1999. Once President Hugo Chavez was elected, it slowly started to become more and more socialist because he believed corporations were evil and they were taking from the people. So after that, they've just gone down that path, and today more people are starving in Venezuela than ever. They have over 1,000,000% inflation going on, so people are struggling to buy bread, there's people starving, it's just not a good place to live. Now, people like Bernie Sanders emphasizes socialism, and he looks at the Nordic countries as great examples of how socialism works. However, he is wrong in the fact that those countries are not socialist because yes, they do have stronger safety nets. They're still based on free market economies, and he was called out on that by one of the Nordic presidents because he believes they're not socialist, they're free market economies with larger safety nets. So to pay for all those social benefits, Sweden, for instance, has a 61.5% average income tax rate for an individual, which is extremely high, almost double that of the US. Additionally, the wealth that allows those programs to work was created prior to those programs being implemented. So now that we have those terms defined, we kind of refuted Bernie's claim. Let's talk about why capitalism is the most moral and effective economic system. It's moral because it gives people, buyers and sellers alike, the choices to make those buying and selling decisions that they deem fair, which is very moral, because if you think Chevy is a better value for a car than Ford, you can buy from Chevy instead of Ford. You get that option. Additionally, why is it effective? It's effective because in the US, more people have jobs than ever. You also have a higher standard of living, and people are living a lot longer than they ever have in the past in the US. So what are some claims against capitalism? The first is inequality between the top 1%, top 10%, between the bottom 90%. And that is true. I see where people are coming from, but they forget inequality is relative. For instance, my parents do very well. They both work. They're able to send me here, pay for my tuition, all of that stuff. But compared to Bill Gates with a net worth of over 90 billion, the inequality is very high. So inequality is relative. Even further, the richest people in America, that top 90%, the reason that they have that much more wealth and they're continuing to accumulating that wealth is because they're growing their money exponentially, whereas if you're a lower class person, your income might just be going like this because you may not have that extra money to make investments, whereas you're in that top 10%. Like the past 10 years, the stock market's been just going up, and they're invested in the stock market because that's something smart to do, is make those investments. Their money's growing exponentially like that. So Yes, that is true that they're getting more and more money, but it's because their investments are growing exponentially. So another thing people say about capitalism is it leads to oligarchic monopolies. Companies like Amazon they'll put people out of business, stuff like that. And I know where they're coming from, and some people cite like Netflix and Blockbuster, but the reason Netflix innovated as they did and put Blockbuster out of business is because it makes our lives easier. Instead of going to Blockbuster to go get a movie, we can just stream it right from our TV. So that term is called creative destruction. So yes, people at Blockbuster did lose their jobs, but the jobs at Netflix and other companies will continue to accrue over time, inevitably putting more and more people back into the workforce. So why is this discussion of capitalism important? It's important for a couple reasons. The first of which is, like I said, Bernie Sanders is advocating for socialism, and that's a dangerous thought because socialism banks on the idea that government officials will remain uncorrupt. And with all that being said, capitalism is the best economic system there is, and it will continue to be.